Thank you and good morning. We have our webinar today about the COVID-19 economic response to the self-employed, what has already been done, what remains to be done. I think it's an important topic. In Europe are over 30 million people self-employed, and I think they are very strong hidden by the crisis. And we have the pleasure now today, or I don't know if it's a pleasure to discuss this now today, but we have the honor to have as host and for the welcome and opening Lukas Mand, member of the European Parliament. Thank you that you are here. He is also our Vice President of SME Connect, member of LIBE, AFET and EMPL committees. So you are really close also to self-employees. I know this from your region that you are very in touch with the people. Then we have very interesting interventions from different levels. The first is from Ionut Lacusta, Head of Public Policy Globo. Thank you that you are here today. You will also explain your company. I think it's more in South Europe, well known in France, Spain, Portugal, Morocco. And we have today also Srita Heide, Special SME Europe Representative for Diversity, also an own entrepreneur, Srita Heide International. Thank you that you're here today from Germany. Then Kamile Kaselyte, marketer and strategist, founder of Kaka Consulting Services. Thank you. You are from Belgium now joining us to this webinar. And at the end, Michael Jager, Secretary General of the Taxpayer Association of Europe. I think it's an important part because we are all taxpayers, the self-employees, the politicians, we are all paying also this crisis and suffering. And now I would give the floor free for Lukas Mand for the welcome and opening. The floor is yours.
Thank you, HorstHeitz. Thank you so much for the initiative you have taken for today's event. It's so important to discuss this not tomorrow, but today, because small and middle-sized enterprises have shown from the very beginning of this crisis a very large contribution to solving the issues we have. And that's not only true in economic terms, but also in social terms, I would say, in socio-demographic terms, I would say, and it means a lot for all the societies all over Europe. And for the future, as well as for the labor market and for economy, it's extremely important that small and middle-sized enterprises can survive and will be, I want to say that very frank, will be better off than enterprises in other parts of the world when it comes to European small and middle-sized enterprises, because they are the backbone of our societies and of our economies, and they mean a lot. No other part of the world is that much structured with small and middle-sized enterprises as Europe is, and that's why it's so important that we as SME Connect truly connect people today, experts from all over Europe, to find ways out of this crisis. In my parliamentary capacity, I try to contribute to solutions with less bureaucracy and more flexibility. And this is true for the small and middle-sized enterprises themselves, as well as for the responsible states who try to help small and middle-sized enterprises, other enterprises, employees, unemployed, more and more of them, in these times with taxpayers' money. Actually, that's why it's important that we also have the taxpayers represented in today's meeting, but they also need more flexibility from EU side. The Austrian finance minister was one of the first who raised this issue. Today also the large member state Germany is raising the issue that more flexibility is needed when it comes to contributions from the states for their small and middle-sized enterprises and for their whole economy. So there's a lot to do. As always, I would say, even also before the pandemic, and it will also be true after the pandemic, we have to fight for more flexibility and less bureaucracy. But it's crucial, and it's a question of time at the moment to solve the issues we have. I look forward to the contributions from the experts in today's meeting. I thank again you, HorstHeitz, and your team for organizing this. And I also want, in my capacity as a Vice President of SME Connect, say a large thank you to the experts who speak today. Now I'm looking forward to the papers of the experts. Thank you again.
Horst, we don't hear you.
Sorry, Horst, I think you're muted.
So somebody, I was on and then was unmuted. So thank you very much for the brief overview. I think really what you say, self-employment and SMEs are the power cells of Europe. But how we can keep these power cells running? Because like you say, they are very strong hit by the crisis, especially self-employees. In France, we have numbers that the income decrease on 70% for self-employees. This is dramatic. And we have now different interventions. I think now we had the political part, now we're coming to Glovo, to Mr. Lacusta. I think you are a large company, but so large also not, it depends. But you are from Spain, you founded, it's a startup in fact with 1,500 employees, but you're working together with self-employees. Can you tell us what Glovo is doing and how are you working together with these partners? The floor is yours, Mr. Lacusta.
Thank you, Horst, and thank you once again to SME Connect and to the organizers of this panel. Thank you once again for the invite as well. I think it's a very important conversation as we are all trying to move ahead through a truly unprecedented situation and then figure out the next steps. And I think the dialogue between the industry, the representatives, and then the decision makers will be crucial in this. As you mentioned, and let me say a few words about Glovo as well. We are a company that was born in Barcelona about 6 years ago. We are now in 22 countries on 4 continents and in over 300 cities. In the European Union, we are in Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, Poland, Romania, and Croatia. And we are also in many other places in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Africa, and predominantly in Latin America as well. What we do fundamentally is we are an on-demand delivery app, multi-category one. So our initial goal is to, was and still is, to basically bring you everything in your city in under 30 minutes. Essentially a Google over city. When we started this, we didn't think that something like COVID-19 would be even a remote possibility. But we found this multi-category need quite needed actually in a lot of the cities that had to go under lockdown. With Glovo, I handle public policy and with a twin focus, EU affairs and EMEA. And that has also given me a chance to look at some of the national responses to the COVID crisis. So I think a few points come to mind when we are analyzing that and try to assess what will come next. I think first of all, what has been glaringly obvious is that this is unprecedented. There was no playbook for something like this. There were some comparisons on the economic front with the crisis of 2008, but I think people agreed quite fast that it's not quite the same. We are dealing with a health concern that is rapidly becoming an economic concern, and where most of the governments and the EU as well have started thinking of rescue plans and intervention plans that are again wildly varied from Kenya to Argentina and from within the European Union and at the EU level. If you look at the overall economic effects, I think it's going to be quite dramatic, and we get to see that on all the 3 levels that we work on. So we are essentially a marketplace that puts together customers looking for something in their city, partners, which are usually restaurants, food establishments, flower shops, pharmacies, and couriers, which are the ones doing the delivery. And each one of these has been hit in a different way. In general, many of them, especially in Spain, the status vary, but in Spain, for instance, the vast majority are self-employed. Specifically, the self-employed category seems to be most hit at the European level. I think specifically within the delivery industry, the numbers are a little bit more complex, because we see an increase in the need for deliveries, but we see a massive shift away from food and other verticals and into groceries. The way, the effect that we see from our platform is, like I said, threefold. So first of all, more than 90% of our partners are small and medium enterprises. If your goal is to bring everything, in a city under 30 minutes, then we need to have partnerships with not just the big food chains, but also with your neighborhood pizza place, or with your closest restaurant, or with the pharmacy around the corner. And in some countries, this goes all the way up to 97%, but in Spain, it's more than 90%. And these were hardest hit. In most of the countries that we operate, a limited amount of activity has been allowed for delivery services. But what is interesting is that even in those places where you can, for instance, if you're a restaurant, you cannot do dine-in services, but you can keep your kitchen open for deliveries and for takeaway. A lot of the partners, in some places as many as 50 or 60%, have chose to freeze their activity anyway and furlough their staff, and just take the cost of not operating for 2 or 3 months rather than operate at a limited base. On the couriers, the effect was also quite interesting. In most cities, with extremely few exceptions of the countries that we are in, where something akin to martial law has been stated, governments have immediately realized the potential of the delivery industry to be part of the solution to this whole mess. So they have reached out often, or responded very well to partnership requests, and all the way from Almaty to Buenos Aires, we have multiple initiatives that are trying to not just provide customers with the essentials of living in a curfew, but also provide companies with a lifeline, because sometimes just being able to continue 20% or a bit more of your sales online is better than nothing. It at least allows you to maintain a portion of your staff and a portion of your economic activity. And it has also provided an economic lifeline, an income source to people that needed it most. Obviously, all of this had to happen with very strict hygiene and safety standards, and we had to ensure and upgrade those as much as possible. So essentially, I would say what's quite interesting when you're a platform that works on all of these three levels is that we immediately became a port of call for small and medium enterprises that were trying to maintain a portion of their activity, for people needing flexible or instantaneous or supplemental income at a time when that was no longer forthcoming. And let's keep in mind, that look at Spain, the unemployment figures are now hovering around 15%. Self-employed people are particularly hit. There was a study, I think, by Bruegel early in the month that was looking how the most hit industries, from Horeca to construction, 47% of the people working there were self-employed, and only 37 were full-time employees. So it's an especially vulnerable categories, and maintaining an ability to generate an income in that crisis is absolutely essential. Another development that we have seen and can be perhaps a good lesson for the coming months is that delivery and mobility have started taking the role of an essential service in some way in many cities that need to maintain quarantine. If you want people to not shop more than once a week, for instance, or if you want mobility within a city to be managed in a way, it really helps to have digital platforms that can provide accountability and control over the standards under which these are being done. So if we look at the exit plans, and we see that even the most courageous ones on the economic side will maintain strong safety parameters, then I have a feeling that delivery and mobility and other digital platforms like this are going to become increasingly an essential service, like internet service providers or electricity or utilities or whatnot. And I think the substance of the dialogue with the authorities, both at the European and the national level, is going to change. I think another thing that has come up is that it has shown the industry and startups and small and medium enterprises to be very trusted partners of dialogue for the government. because on the one hand, we tended to be the first ones that were hit, but we're also the most resilient ones in terms of being able to relaunch activity after a crisis. So I think in terms of the next step, it's definitely too early to tell. I think most of the economic plans are increasingly clear in terms of size, but they're still shaping up the details of how they will disperse that support. But one lesson would probably be to prioritize helping startups and SMEs. They like I said, we're the first to fall, but we're also the first ones to be reborn after an event like this. And a second lesson would probably be to accelerate the regulatory conversations that make sure that self-employment is both accessible, plentiful, and safe. And there were some conversations that were being had already with a view to the Platform Work Summit that was due to take place in September, and that will now has been postponed. That we're trying to look at how you can support access to social services and to social protection indifferent of employment status. There was some courageous work being done on portable benefits, on increasing educational and professional growth opportunities for self-employed, and in general, allowing platforms to be as proactive and entrepreneurial on that topic without risk of reclassification. I think there were some directions that will probably now be even more urgent than they were before. I'll just stop for now. I think, like I said, our experience is a little bit in more directions than one, as we have to work with both. We are interacting with self-employed couriers, with small and medium enterprises on the partner side, and with customers who are bearing, like all of us, the brunt of this limitations. And the lessons, like I said, it's way too early to draw a definitive one, but these are some of the things that I think we can continue contemplating going forward.
Thank you very much. I think what we here also learned that companies like Glovo are seismographs who are feeling what is going on with SMEs and self-employed, what's happening. What is now your experience? You say some shops or some restaurants stopped to the delivering at all. To have you an increasing of SMEs and self-employees who are using the Glovo service, or in general it's the same, or it's changed? Only different people are using this now. What is your experience?
Excellent question. And actually that choice of words is more fortunate than mine. I think you can call it a seismograph. I mean, first of all, I just have to say that on the bigger picture, the economic effects are, even for the industries that have been more necessary now than before, like us, the economic effects have been very, very serious and negative. Nobody that I know makes a profit in our industry. I mean, that was scarcely the case even before, with most of them being still privately held startups, but now even less so. There's definitely a shift away from some verticals like food, and by that I mean dining food, to groceries, but the margins are radically different. So even if you have markets where where online demand of groceries has increased 5 or 6 times, the margins are radically different from food, and they require usually a different service. And that has been one lesson. And in the EU, again, the numbers differ a little bit from country to country, but I would say, as a rule of thumb, even in those places where a restaurant or a small shop could maintain an online selling presence, I would say roughly half have chosen not to, simply because they estimated that the cost of running even a partial service over 2 or 3 months would be higher than just freezing the activity, or sometimes even declaring bankruptcy and going and planning to restart the activity right after. So there's definitely a lot of conservatism, and I think a lot of ability to see what will follow this and how. So that is definitely, uncertainty is affecting this environment as much as the virus situation itself.
Horst, your mic is off.
I think I turned it on and somebody's turning it off. So we're coming next to Srita Heide, a Special SME Europe representative for diversity. Srita, you are an entrepreneur, but you are also a politician. and I have to say diversity was always strange, something what can be an advantage, but now how self-employees are hidden differently. Women, for I have to say people with disadvantage and so on. What is now the situation there? What is your perspective? The floor is yours. Now you are off.
Okay, I'm off.
Now you're on.
Now it's
You're
okay.
on.
I'm on, right? Okay. So thank you very much. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for selecting this particular topic, which I was very much surprised, but it was a pleasant surprise, because definitely SME Connect is always, going onto the basics of the economy in the within the European Union. So I just would like to share some of my general thoughts, and then very much focus on self-employment and giving some conclusion remarks on what can be a sort of vision for self-employed people within the European Union. So as everybody said, that we were not prepared for this particular phase where we are going through. And we, as a company, as an entrepreneur, as you said, we connect SMEs in Europe with SMEs in emerging markets. So we are talking to everybody around the globe. And I always try to motivate entrepreneurs and say one thing is that you all, at the beginning of the year, you have some objectives. So you keep these objectives and goals. The only thing that you need to define now is different approach and different methods. And this is a fantastic phase for all of us to, learn, understand, analyze, observe, act and react, review our existing processes. It may be within the politics, it may be within an organization, and find some creative solutions for the future. Self-employment is a very diversified, gives you a very diversified picture in Europe, because the nature of self-employment business, it differs from country to country. And the business is also very diversified, as you said, from economic point of view. In terms of business generation within the European Union, we are directly or indirectly linked with each other also at the same time. So in Germany, for example, if you take the word self-employment, you may also find companies like, law firms, tax firms, strategic consulting companies with small teams. They function like a small mid-sized company, but they have the legal entity of self-employment. So you see the self-employment definition within the European Union, with or without Corona, was already very diversified, and there were different other challenges also. However, just now in this particular phase, I appreciate that different nations have taken very quick steps to support self-employed professionals and firms, so that they have they can short-term work arrangements, like so that they have some liquidity, and they can save money, and they get some fund, like in Germany, for example. In a very quick process, the state governments made it possible for companies with till 5 employees to get 10,000 euro fund, till 10 employees 20,000 euro fund, and till 50 employees 30,000 euro fund. So, and at the same time, there has been some tax reliefs, and there has been people who are under long-term credits are allowed, to stop repaying the loans for the next 3 to 6 months, so that the loan term get extended behind. So there has been few measures which I really appreciate, so that you give some relief in their all-day needs, so that you can take care of your fixed costs, because you cannot get rid of your fixed costs totally. And self-employees and SMEs, they really in this particular phase, this is a very important point for them. How do I have the money for the next 3 to 4 months so that I can pay my employees, I can, pay the rent, and etc. So this is something which is highly appreciable. Where I just would like to, make all of us aware is that because the topic is also, what we can do in the future. We need to do a lot of things so that we can foster the stronger collaboration between self-employed and SMEs within the European collaboration, within the European Union. So, so far there has been, less, I think social security is definitely a topic with which self-employed companies are facing with. And I just would like to give 2 ideas where I think that maybe what we can do is that by setting, some common standards, by setting some quality guidelines, defining some parameters, like how processes are driven within strategic consulting companies, within tax consultant companies, and how result-oriented we work, so that self-employed professionals are allowed to qualify and to acquire a grade or a certificate, so to be more, to allow to take up more EU-driven projects, for example. And another thing is that maybe with this we can ensure the size and the scope of work of the self-employed people within the European Union, and it can be a sort of discussion point also, that maybe creating a sort of self-employment insurance as a security which can be funded by the European Union. So the first early steps which has been taken by different EU member steps to, support these self-employment professionals is good, is definitely, I will not say it is enough, but it was right, and it was right on time, as far as I can observe it from Germany. And the second step is now definitely focusing on how we can ensure that these people survive also in the future, and how we can strengthen and increase and better the collaboration within the European Union, so that the social security part is more considered. I will just leave it like that, Horst, for the moment.
Thank you very much. I think this is one of the important discussion also with self-employment also before the Corona crisis, the social security. But I have to say also, there are 2 different types of self-employment who choose to be self-employed because they like also to work like this, independent, but sometimes you had no other choice to become self-employed. So because it is very different in the countries, how from the numbers, so in Greece, 29% of the population is employees are self-employed, and in Denmark or in Germany, only 8 to 9%. So
Yeah.
that, like you say, the structure is very different. In Italy, 21%, Poland, 18%, Estonia, 8%, Denmark, 8% only. I think there's another, I think, approach then for the European Union, because it's not, if you say we need a European solution, the member states are different tackled by self-employment. And what you say with this social assurance European, this would lead to a social European Union also, or not? Do you think this is the step would be this realistic to help fast, or is this your long-term vision?
I mean, this is a phase where we need to understand the reality and definitely also have some visions and take some measures. So getting a connection between the reality and vision, let us be very honest to us, and I'm sure that in the next months, the number of self-employment in the European Union will increase. because many professionals who are experts on particular fields will also lose their jobs, or they will think that it is better to offer my services, my knowledge as a self-employed consultant. So the number of self-employment will increase. So we are talking about a group of people who are knowledge experts in particular fields, and we need them for our day-to-day business. And at the same time, how we get them structured and organized. We need to think on this. And I think that we need, how can we do it? And I think that there are many professionals who are getting a lot of funds and a lot of guidelines from the European Union to structure their own business. And self-employed people have not been taken care of so far. So there can be, a qualification method, and this qualification method will give you more secured work and business related topics within the European, to get connected with others also. At the same time, then there can be a sort of funding, because many self-employed people in Germany, for example, they have private insurance to ensure their pension. So so this type of things can be thought of to give this self-employment status a bit more structure, because they are also contributing to the social economy. Many self-employed firms are having 4 or 5 employees also. So they are creating jobs, they are taking care of jobs, and they are contributing with knowledge and expertise.
Thank you very much. I think this is the idea that self-employment can be an emergency solution, but can be also a kickback for the economy, because there can be also new chances for the future. Now we're coming to our next speaker, Kamile Kaselyte. You are self-employed. How you feel you at the moment? Did help receive from the European Union, from the Belgian government? What is your situation now?
I think most of my ideas actually resonate with Srita and the things that she briefly highlighted. And I think personally, I'm registered in Lithuania, and as you can see now, the support for self-employed really differs across different member states. And I think for self-employed people, now it will be the time to really think where I would want to base my company, because being in Europe, we're really flexible. So we have education maybe in one country, family in another country, and now it will be really the time to really rethink the decisions that we have made and look at our business models one more time, because self-employment, it was perceived as a flexible business model. Maybe you have a working space a co-working space that you rent. So it's not the whole office that you rent. You have maybe a team, but maybe your team is on not on a contract, but they are working as subcontractors. So the whole model was really flexible, but at the same time, it causes a number of strains, especially in crises like this. And then we also look at the European level, and we see how different member states and people tackle this. And once again, I think for self-employed people, it's the time to define their strategies and how they will restructure after a crisis, because I think we were really flexible, but at the same time, we cannot during the crisis depend on the government support, because in most of the states, the support is not proportional to the income or the tax you already paid in the last year. So it's a fixed cost, it's a fixed repayment, let's say per 1 month. And usually this repayment or the payment from the government support is usually suggested during the quarantine time and lockdown time. So it's not something, as a long-term measure to help you grow and help you get back to the situation, but it's something as more like a lockdown bonus. So I think in this case, it's not a good measure if it's not proportional to your tax repayments of the last year or the income you have managed to achieve last year. So I think for us, one of the lessons is we were praised for being flexible, and I think now is the time with COVID-19 that more and more corporations will also probably nurture these kind of people who have worked as a self-employed for years, and they will see the flexibility, and they will see that these are the people that can come into our companies. Because in my previous experience, I felt like if self-entrepreneurs, if you have been self-employed and you've been an entrepreneur and you want to go corporate for some years and you're applying for corporate jobs, you feel the strain that companies look at you as if, you know, you have worked as a self-employed for 5-6 years, let's say, and in the corporation you will be no longer a good fit. So I think COVID-19 reshapes that sort of like image of entrepreneur, of self-employed, and shows how important it is to be flexible during those times. And I think it will be really appreciated, I think, for companies who will be like looking for employees. Let's say, even I see some self-employed people now, even during this time, moving to corporations, which is really I think interesting shift, and not something that could have been easily expected. So I think also another interesting takeaway in my situation is that I work in marketing and PR consulting, and we give marketing and PR services to companies, various size companies, from SMEs to bigger corporations. And I think usually when you have a crisis, the first thing that is usually said, what companies do, they will cut their budgets on marketing. But what we see now, since everything shifts online, this is a mistake not to be made. So if you want to survive during the crisis, you have to get your customers, you have to get the word out. So I think the takeaway in my business is, let's say that even during those times, I think companies are more and more aware that yes, they have to carry on marketing activities, and maybe they shift from physical, let's say, marketing activities they've done in their restaurants with leaflets, with outdoor advertising. They are now going online, and even those companies that were sort of resistant to, I don't know, open an e-shop or advertise on Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Ads, SEO, now they're still I think open to collaborations, open to marketing advice. And I think now they realize that there's only one way to reshape their business model so that they fit online and that they use marketing. But at the same time, I feel like for us self-employed people or entrepreneurs who have had contracts with companies, now in this crisis, it's really again a lesson to be learned. How are we signing contracts? What terms and conditions are we putting? Because let's say if you have a client with 1 year of marketing budget, and most of your work is already done, let's say, but the client already is, you know, backing off and saying, you know, this is unprecedented times, I will not be carrying any more marketing activities, this or that. So it's, again, I think for self-employed people, this is the time to really look at how you employ your colleagues, at how you employ other people in your team. How are you structuring all the partnerships with your clients? What are your, let's say, safety measures for another crisis yet to happen? And I think it's also important for self-employed people or entrepreneurs to look at in which state they're basing their activities, unless there are European measures and taken to harmonize this environment, because I think it's just really unbelievable how different the measures can be in different countries. And if we look at what can be done on European level, I think it's important then to say that maybe we can still have some European level measures in the crisis periods, not not to mention that self-employed people may have it all the time, but at least then we maybe can agree or move towards crisis times and what we can do for entrepreneurs or self-employed people in those unprecedented times.
Thank you very much. I think you gave us very good ideas. I think first, if self-employment employees are flexible, then we need also a flexible internal market for services and goods. I think also for self-employees who are living across to a border, Bavaria to Czech Republic or Belgium to Germany, that we need to become less bureaucracy. So completing the internal market. I think also the phenomenon that self-employees are going back to large companies, and that could be also a shift of the image, that self-employees has really this value that they really deserve, and that this experience is not like why you were self-employed, why you didn't work for a large company. I think this is an image question also. The only thing what I have is visibility. I think you say PR is important, but how small in this, if you are staying online and so on. I know from many cities who are trying now to create own websites with the list of small shops and services to promote, because before they were not online. Is this fast enough? Is this really realistic that they're becoming really visible? What you would like? Should they work together with large companies like Allegro as a platform or Glovo? What is your advice? Or with cities, is this really from small communities? Is this really a solution for the future? Has this to be shifted completely? What is your idea to this answer?
I think in the example given, if there's always like a net of small companies under, let's say, one bigger company overseeing them, there's usually a problem, because those small medium enterprises, they have different margins, and even if they can be like under one umbrella of, like, let's say one sector, they can be like all, I don't know, grocery deliveries, or they can be platforms of I don't know, shops of boutiques of clothing. They usually would have different margins, different business models, and I think it's usually difficult for them to benefit properly from those kind of platforms where they're put. They may have better visibility, they may have I'm sorry, may have gained more customers or more sales, but it's still in practice not enough. But what definitely works, I think, if entrepreneurs, if business owners really have the drive to succeed, I mean, not to succeed, but to survive maybe in the first place during this COVID-19 crisis, I think what they can do and what they are actually doing, they're utilizing online courses and online education about how to market yourself, how to market your activities in relation to your own business model, in relation to your own advertising messages. So I think what really works, Google even way back before the crisis offers free training and free tools for small SMEs to advertise online. So if you go to places like Google Garage, or there are plenty of tools and plenty of videos and even certifications you can get for free from Google. Of course, there's this affiliation with Google, so then you are like more likely to use Google tools, but still, I think there are plenty of online tools and abilities for people to use the platforms. Even if you want to advertise on Facebook, it's on most levels for the beginning. I think entrepreneurs or self-employed people still can do it themselves. Of course, if they want to go deeper into certain aspects, then they hire consultants like me, where we help, you know, with their marketing strategy, with their goals, and where we do targeted campaigns. But I think it's still possible in the first steps for entrepreneurs to learn, because it's these skills are essential, and I think they will understand that they have to take everything in their own hands.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, it's time to learn and transform. At the same time, with the financial pressure, it's, I think, also a hard approach. Very difficult, but I think also that there was also a lack in the past and we missed the time to prepare us. Michael Jager, you are from the taxpayer.
Horst, your mic is off.
There's a lot.
Okay, excellent.
Yes, there's a lot about financial transformation and also support, but also to fight bureaucracy and to use new chances. What is your approach? What is your idea as taxpayers? Do we have endless money to support everybody? How we should invest the taxpayers' money now in the best way? Michael.
Ross, that's a very good question because it looks like we have endless money. So if you look, there's now a new idea in Germany to €1 to every inhabitant of Germany that they can go in shops which were closed during the Corona crisis to spend this money. It sounds nice, but it's mean additional public spending 20 billion. And if you just look what is done now in Germany with guarantees, direct payments, this will lead to a total budget 1,200 billion, actually after 2 months. So how to proceed and how to pay back this debt? Well, that's also important. And I was wondering when we were discussing now the self-employment, that there's a European discussion that says that there must be a European self-employment in insurance, something like this. No, it's not necessary. We have regulations in Germany. Beside my job as a taxpayer's watchdog and a vice president in different functions, I'm also self-employed. But I pay my private, in the state pension system, I have my private pension because I'm an economist. And what we need that we educate young startups that they have to take care of this. There are many possibilities. Some private people invest in real estate. If they are pensioners, that they get money out of this. So it's for sure that they need everybody in a social market economy is first responsible himself. And I think this is not completely forgotten. We want to help everybody, each restaurant, each branches. We do not reflect if they have a problem because of Corona or if they had structural problems before. And I think it's all the big problem now in Germany. What we see from tax advisors, even we get information. You can apply, you can ask for support, financial aid, what was already mentioned. But if you don't need this money, because your shop is open, if you have a fuel station, or let's say if you sell food, everything was fine. They had more sales, or look to Amazon and others. But some corporates ask for financial aid, and I think that's also against economic ethics. If you do not need the money, those who need to be supported, they should get the money. So more subject-oriented funds and support. That's really important. But if we look back at what was happening last days, so European Commission is against some parts of the support of the German government. So if you want a credit as a self-employed, you can go to KfW, but until some weeks ago, there was a strict limitation that the local bank has to give 10% of the guarantee, and say these credits were rejected. So and then there's this actual study. 2/3 of these applications were rejected. So if the SMEs do not get self-employed, personal or private corporates, and others do not get the money now, I think it's not the job of the European Commission to decide what is acceptable or not now in the crisis. we can limit it in time for sure. That we say it's now for this crisis 6 months, then we need a European discussion which measures are allowed or not. But now to say in Denmark you're allowed to do this, in Germany no, we don't want this because it's violating competition. I think it's back. What is really important for us with the taxpayers, we spend lots of money. We have the European budget. We talk about the European Recovery Fund and the Eurobonds. I think it's a wrong approach to say let's bring all debts together. And if you do not change the behavior, you have to look at that the states had indebtedness. Why some countries, such for instance Bavaria, had a better condition even in China, North Westphalia or Berlin. If you have structural problems, if you have structural debt in your budget, you have to fight this too. Otherwise, you take all these debts now, we socialize, we make a European debt. In 5 to 6 years, we will have the same important social market-oriented economy. First, you're responsible your own. That's really important. Now in a crisis of 1-2 months shut down, we have lots of corporates who cannot survive. And there's something wrong in the system if you have no resources, no capital, that your corporate is destroyed after 1 or 2 months. Then we should do nationally something, tax cuts, that you have more capital in the corporate, more own resources. So something is wrong. Maybe the economical plan, the master plan of the corporates, or what I think the taxation is too high, that they have no opportunity that they can build up reserves. But it's not normal that in each crisis we spend such a huge volume amount of money. Look to Corona now. It's one single virus. The indebtedness of Bavaria is doubling, guaranteed up to 60 billion. German-wide, European-wide, it's only one virus. So we need a strategy after this crisis to avoid this impact on self-employed and other corporates. Otherwise, it will destroy it and indebtedness, and the future generation will have to pay for it. And so we think if you have direct payments, you need to Corona, and more subject needs, not helicopter money to give everybody each amount of money they want, each credit. If you have an impact because of Corona, yes, you should apply for it, but not a general support of everyone. It will not work. It's one virus with such an impact. It will double our indebtedness in Germany at least. We will have lots of unemployment, and we need a strategy to get out of this crisis. And I think we need tax cuts. There are a lot of possibilities nationally which could be done. If you look to the tax payment in advance, there must be a change, refund of taxes, and also if you have improvement of loss carry back. There was an idea now, and I hope it will be allowed. It is limited to 1 million normally in Germany, that you can bring your debt in this year completely back to the last year. I think this would be really helpful, and that it is not a loss of taxes, because if you have a debt this year, you can not pay next year taxes. So it would be a good approach to use all these tools which are possible, but not to ask in general for European guarantees and multi-payments. We need also transparency. If you get money from Europe or from Germany, you cannot have the same crisis financed from several trees. It's not fair. So we have to say, listen, you have to, how to say, tackle. You have to cap it, to say, listen, there's a certain amount which could be done, and because everything else is already regulated. For instance, in Germany, if you're unemployed, you get money. you have short work, you have now a payment until 87% of your salary, last salary. So we have a lot of state guarantees, but we should not finance things twice, 3 times. So that's all for the moment, and I'm ready for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think, is this not the problematic what you say? On one hand, the fast help, that means without bureaucracy, the same hand to bring the money to the right people, and
Yes.
that also the government and also European Union has limit of finances. So how to bring this all together? If you say, I have also many self-employees from different countries who saying, I'm waiting and waiting that I get the money, and others getting very fast. It's very different.
Yes.
Also in Germany, it's very different. In Berlin, it's 2 days, 3 days, you get your money. In other parts of Germany, you're waiting 3 weeks. So it's a different approach. But how to solve this problem to bring help fast, and at the same time, quantity and quality to bring it on one level? I think the people want also that the help is coming fast. I think how to say, this is now the right person who get the money and this is the wrong person who get the money. How to solve this? Because the tax cuts and so on, it's only mid and long-term help.
Yeah. Horst, I think what is needed, that everyone has to declare each state, if it's a local municipal like Munich, Bavarian, German support. It must be declared in the tax declaration. You must declare it. Then you have to declare what is also needed, that it's faced to the impact of the Corona crisis. And later, what already was mentioned as the economy minister of Bavaria, we will have partly control if it's correct or not. So if people lie and they do not write correctly this paper, fill in the papers, digital, then it should be controlled, it should be punished. That's a criminal act, should be, illegal things should be punished. But if you look now to an idea, what is done in Baden-Württemberg, and was also a decision on the German, in the German Bundestag, we have a lot of students, 450 euro jobs, so small, self-employed, really with low income, to finance their study. Then there should be now a payment to them. First, I have to say, you have to declare always it must be a legal job. Some who were working black in the black market should not be supported. So you have to send your tax declaration, your monthly, whatever, and also your rental contract for your flat. You have to send it. Digital, you can upload it. So it must be transparent and fair that people declare. And I know many tax advisors say, listen, my client has less profits, but he has no debts, and say apply for Corona aids. And I think it's not fair. If you have less profits, that's bad, but it's not our job as a society to finance the profits. So we have to look really who is in need, and you should make a declaration that you have that you have a problem. And then we have to look to branches. If you look to in Germany, for instance, in Bavaria, gastronomic branch and tourism is really collapsing. They are really, really collapsing. So and then we have to look what could be done. Maybe we need more structural funds to change things. I love the restaurants in Munich and Berlin. But maybe now we see that it's too much because they have no reserves, and it's not a business model. So what can we do in the future to avoid this huge impact? But we have to look to the branches. We have for sure tourism and gastro branch. They have losses and huge problems, and how to solve and to assist them. And we have to lower the tax for sure. Value-added tax will be lowered until next year, starting from July. But I think this will not be enough. So we need tax cuts. depreciation, so that if you invest, that you have not to split it into 3, 4, 5 years. If you invest now, you should be allowed to invest this year and to deduct it in your tax declaration completely this year. So I think these national tools should be used first, and then if we cannot solve the problem on a national level, we have to think of the European. But first, like in the social market economy theory, first you're yourself responsible. Then we ask for the municipal, country, federal, and European level. So that's my personal opinion as an economist.
Thank you very much. Also a clear advocate diabolo, in fact, that to say what are the limits and what are the other restrictions on this. If it's possible, we have perhaps 2 questions from the audience. If it's we had already one that we could answer.
I think already. I could. Yeah, I was looking at questions. If you don't mind, I can on one of these. Yes. I see we have a question from Peter, and he asks how travel, event, restaurant branches can survive after this pandemic. And he also said not everyone can open a car workshop or PR agency. So I think there are plenty of practices and examples already of industries affected and how they are restructuring their businesses, how they're widening or their offerings. For example, travel industries, of course, they are affected, and of course you cannot organize trips. And this obviously affects your business, but what you can do, there have been examples of travel agencies opening, let's say, local hotels or local activities, let's say walks in the forest, organized tours for people with social distance, etc. Something that people can do and enjoy in their own countries without leaving their country after the strict quarantine measures are lifted. So I think what most travel agencies and travel firms are doing, they're looking back at their local markets as opposed to making people leave and enjoy other countries. They're now looking at the national tourism and how they can allow people to enjoy their own country, what they can do with families, with kids, and how they can offer, let's say, the escape from their flats for those people who maybe not have houses, for those people who don't have balconies, for those who want to maybe enjoy sea or etc. So I think you have to look now a little bit more domestically. And of course, you may not want to open a PR agency, but what you can do, you can then look at whether you can shift some of your services online, and how you have to look at your services and diversify which of the services would be more likely to succeed in this time or after this pandemic. So maybe you have a list of services and some of these things can be transferred in digital format. So a lot of event agencies are now doing events online as we're now speaking. This is still, online event, but still SME Europe still carries on with their activities. And next week I'm also participating in a conference, Rocket conference, that was supposed to take place in Moldova. Now they're gathering thousands of people all online and still, keep going. So I think now you have to look at how you can deliver the same value, but in another format, which means in digital, how you can connect people and make them heard. And I think whatever your business is, you have to make sure you communicate with your clients appropriately. By that, I mean, you have to inform them whatever changes you're doing, whatever you have some new things affecting your business. So let it be deliveries, let it be different packaging, let it be something, but you have to always keep keep the dialogue open with customers, because we're all very stressed out and the customers feel they're not heard, they don't receive something, they're lost, and they're also very anxious. So at this time, communication is essential. So whatever you do, make sure that you really outline everything and you're in open dialogue. So I think now it's about the diversification of the services, and I hope I answered your question. I see something is popping up in chat. Thank you very much for the answer. We have to come clear. Yeah, I think what you have to come up with is the plan, how you can make your services available online and to which target audience. So I need to be clear that you cannot reach maybe the same people, and now your target audience will be different. So you need to think, what is that target audience doing? Where is it now? And what needs it has? So you have to really step into others people's shoes and think what would be the right thing to offer them. And also make sure that you research properly what's available in the market, because now with COVID-19, you can see this very, very different offerings. So someone will be offering the same thing for like €5 and somebody else for €30, and you wouldn't know why is that. So make sure you have a very clear value proposition and you have researched the market, whatever you're going into. And for example, in my home country, in Lithuania, we have shifted to making, for example, even events, drive-in events. Basically, you're sitting in your car and you drive through, I don't know, a concert happening, and you can open your car's window and you can watch it. So for example, it's a fun thing, and people with Instagram, such things, they would say, oh, this is the new life. And that's how you can sort of, get going.
Thank you very much for this advices and ideas. I think it's good. This is the strongness of self-employment with flexibility. But for the tourism branch, we have also to face perhaps that 30% of the hotels and restaurants will never reopen anymore.
Yes.
So this will be a transformation we will have never before. And I think it is also a regional problem, because if you're on an island and 80% of your business is tourism, then this island is, I have to say, what is the solution there? Because the regional tourism will not solve the problem. So
Yeah.
we have to see. Yeah,
may I comment on one thing?
Yes, one thing, and then we have to come to the end.
Only one thing is that I think I'll come back what Kamile also said, that we all need to have a very collaborative approach. Mm-hmm. And one very good example in Germany is that Aldi realized that they need more resources in terms of manpower, because for the grocery retail markets we are really short of manpower. And they took all the restaurant employees from McDonald's who were not able to be employed in this particular phase. So this is something where we have to have more collaborative approach to support each other. And I'm sure that, and just would like to come back once, is that because the topic was of self-employment, and when I suggested that we need to give a structure to this interest group in the European Union, it doesn't mean that we need to give them money. It means that we need to give them a clear definition who they are as part of a working group within the European institution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think this is, yeah, you see, it must be a bundle of approach: financial help, fighting bureaucracy, new ideas. So it's coming from also the cooperation with large companies who can be partners, new business models. So I think it will be with all chances, a hard transformation. Even if you're thinking that the crisis will take longer than 1 year, perhaps 2 years, that the crisis will end 2022 or 2023. So it will be a long run. But in the end, I think, like you say, in the future, we can become out stronger. And transformations who are necessary are coming now, not in 5 or 10 years, because some problems were already, I think, not coming up with COVID-19. They were already there. Now they are very clear visible. And I think this is perhaps also a momentum. I say thank you to all the speakers. I say thank you to Lukas Mand, who was the host of this event. And I would say this is not the end of this discussion. We are planning also a webinar about future of work. So this is what will be the jobs in the future, the business models in the future. I think we're coming now to the part where we're not only discussing anymore how to manage COVID-19, so more what is after COVID-19. And I think this must be linked now in the discussion, helping the people and the entrepreneurs now efficiently, but also sustainable, that we have also a future where this life we were used to be coming back. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to the audience. And if you have questions and so on, please send it to us. Visit our websites on SME Connect. We have really interesting webinars also for the next weeks. And if you have ideas for projects or topics, please contact us. Thank you very much. Goodbye.